Come on.
What? Okay, yeah. You gonna interview
Okay.
me?
Yeah. I'm gonna interview you.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're an activist. Are you an activist?
I'm not an activist.
You're
I'm
not an activist.
barely
You're a poet.
Yeah.
So you're a poet. You reflect back to the world.
Reflect back to myself.
Okay. So what's wrong with politics?
It's just not an accurate representation right now of what people actually want. And part of that is because people they're not really inspired to go out and vote. For one thing, it's been a while since Canada's really had a leader.
Right.
But a lot of it is just, what happened with the last election, saying like, oh yes, we want a majority government.
Right.
It's not a true majority government.
Not at all.
Based on the way it came down. So.
But it's the way it works out. And so people see all that power concentrated. Can parties? I guess my question is this: can political parties share power? Can politicians share?
I believe political parties can work together
Right.
towards a common goal. I think that's kind of what should be happening.
Right.
But there's just so much infighting. How do you get past all that?
Infighting within the parties or between?
Between.
Right.
Because really, they're still part of the same country. So, like, when I say it's infighting,
Yes.
well, they may have different visions for what the country should be.
That's right. That's right.
But they're still Canadian citizens.
Right.
So, when I say infighting, it's Canadians fighting Canadians.
Right. So you believe enough in politics to show up to an event?
Yeah.
Right. So there's hope mixed with despair, or is hope the right word? Is it? You look at the political scene and you say, well, the country isn't finding that leadership that inspires and brings people back. But is there not still yet a desire within people to want to be inspired?
Absolutely.
Right.
I think that's why people get disheartened easily.
Sure.
And God knows I've been as well.
Sure.
But I'm still holding out for that moment of yes, this is gonna bring us together. This is a cause worth fighting for. And right now with what's happening in Canada, it's like we got a government that's breaking laws left and right, saying, well, people don't care. They're right. People don't care. They haven't done anything. They haven't stood up for themselves.
Haven't they, though? I hear what you're saying, right? So the government goes out and does all these things, and people feel disempowered, disaffected, and they don't rise up. Because you're saying, why don't people rise up?
Mm-hmm.
You see an Attawapiskat on the news, you see the Harper government tear up this law, that law, and you say, well, where are people? Why aren't they coming out and shouting? You did a poem last night. What'd you call it? The Voice?
This is my voice.
This is my voice. It doesn't essentially talk about that, using your voice.
Well, just the power of an individual voice. And you can't go walk around saying that my voice doesn't count. I meet so many people that are like, well, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't, in the long run, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Does it not really matter, or are you just being lazy?
But have you not had those same feelings yourself? Do you think it's election time?
I have had those feelings.
I don't feel like there's any choice on the ballot that makes me feel inspired.
Yeah.
Am I going to go bother and spend the half an hour, 45 minutes?
A lot of the times I feel like I'm voting between the lesser of two evils.
Right.
And trying to strategize, well, how can I use my vote most efficiently? Which, in a way, is a screwed up strategy in and of itself. You should vote for who you want to vote for.
Rather than vote against the thing that most makes you afraid.
Exactly.
But is there not an opportunity, maybe a gift might be too strong a word, with what Harper's doing right now? That if he can't provoke people with the way he's running government into action, into demanding better leadership, not just voting against something, but voting for something, then is that not a thing to be seized? Does not George Bush give us Barack Obama? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's why so many people turned out last night. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to, be concerned citizens.
Because they're saying, whether I'm not a party member, I don't
No, how many people did you have sign up last night?
Tons.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that speaks volumes, especially in a place like Penticton, which has been a conservative stronghold for ages.
That's been the story.
Yeah, that's been the story here for as long as I can remember. And last night you had people, leaving their current parties for this party.
Stories are interesting things to me. Some people make politics into something bigger than it is. To me, it's just a series of stories.
Yeah.
Right. Harper got up recently.
It's cause and effect. You have somebody like Harper in office, you're gonna get a reaction.
That's right.
It's just, to me, what concerns me is it feels like it's been so slow. It feels like that frog in the boiling pot of water. It's just sitting there.
Right. Nobody
being
notices.
Slowly cooked to death.
As the Constitution.
Whereas,
out.
you throw a frog into a pot of boiling water, it's gonna jump up right away. But right now it feels like we're coming to this slow boil, and we're just kind of like, well, let's see what happens. And that concerns me. So it's nice to it was inspiring last night to see
that
so
crowd
many
show up.
To see that crowd show up, and not only that, to see them participate,
They were totally
to
engaged,
become
right?
active. You
That's
know,
right.
so that to me was pretty
Like
incredible.
we end the night and everyone sticks around
Yeah.
and just talk,
Absolutely.
right? How
That
good
place
is
was, that place was ready to close. They were kicking people out, but
That's right.
people still wanted to talk. We went to another place afterwards so people could hang out and talk about politics.
So, one of the things I said last night, I said, well, what if we are gathered in that room?
Mhm.
What if this is the room that we are gathered in, where the change then ends up happening?
Yeah.
I'm asking people, in a sense, to dare to hope again, because it's not as if people haven't had experience where they've trusted the system
Yeah.
and then been burned. They go, well, yeah, I'll go and vote, I'll go sign up, I'll go join something, I'll do something, I'll march in the streets, I'll sign a petition, and the hope doesn't get manifested to change. And they say, well, God, I put all that energy in and nothing happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there enough energy in the world that you live in, whether it's fear or desperation of the situation starting to fall apart, where people say, in order to see the change, I have to put aside my experiences of being let down and hope again, and invest again, and get active again.
You're
show
right.
up at an Occupy, show up at a reading, and be involved.
There comes a point where people do have to, put their, their hesitations aside and step up and be part of the process. Be a Canadian. Be part of what's happening. Otherwise you really have no right to complain about what's happening if you're not actively involved. No investigation, no right to speak.
What do you mean, no investigation, no right to speak?
Well, just there are a ton of people that they say, oh, I don't have time to really look into
Right.
what the politics are behind this and that, and I can sympathize with them.
Sure.
A lot of these people are working jobs that
Sure.
are they're working 2 jobs
That's right.
just to get by.
That's
So
right.
at the end of the day, do you really want to go online and sift through everything that's out there and you have to go through the media too, because some of the times what the media prints isn't actually the truth.
That's right.
So
Or there's so much omission in the story that
absolutely,
it's a lie.
or
Right.
it becomes pushed off to the
That's
side
right.
in a tiny article
Right.
in a section of the newspaper that has nothing to do with what it's actually about.
That's right.
So
So is there not then a need to shake up people? Like if we simply come in and say, wow,
how are you going to do that, though? I guess is my question to you. How are you going to shock them into?
Well, right now it's somewhat of an internal conversation. When parties
Yeah.
go through leadership races, the
Yeah.
only way you get into the conversation is if you're a member of the party.
Totally.
Right? We say, okay, we need to expand that dramatically and have other people come in. I've said, let's be less about ourselves
Yeah.
as a party and more about the country.
Mhm.
Let's put aside only NDP initiatives and only NDP interests, which is the NDP forming government.
Yes.
And say the best way that we do that is if we put that to the side for a moment and say to a larger section of Canadians, we're going to open our doors and we're going to open them physically. We're not going to give platitudes, right? It's like when I go into schools or universities, and I'll be with another politician and they'll say, young people, and they'll go into this series of platitudes about young people, and it
Yeah.
drives me crazy because it's not respectful.
I agree with you.
Right? They go, young people, you're our greatest natural resource and you're our future. And then go back into Parliament and vote on a whole bunch of things that hurts the prospects of young
Yeah.
people. And I say, I call it BS, right? So if you say, how do we shake people up? I say, we change the whole conversation. We take the frame around politics, which is war analogies, right? We're going to war, we got generals and we got war rooms and all the rest. The other guys are terrible, we're the best. And we say, we're going to be generous. We're going to say that the common cause of climate change, the common cause of better education, will unite progressive voters across this country. And we need to lay down our bayonets to other parties or other people who have voted differently.
Mhm.
And say, if you have that common cause, then you are welcome, my friend. It doesn't sound radical,
No.
but it is fundamentally
Absolutely.
against what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do in these things, which is I'm as a candidate supposed to get up and say, the NDP are perfect.
Yeah.
We're the best. Everybody else sucks. And there are members that want to hear that. And I
Yeah.
say, well, that's not the reality. My reality is, if you want to get something done, generally speaking in life, you got to work together. You want to go out on the road and do something with your poetry, right? You're going to work with somebody.
Mhm.
You're going to work with somebody else, right? You want to change something here in your hometown, you're going to work with somebody else. So the problem with partisan politics is it drives people away from working with others.
Mhm.
That's by its nature. It's always a win-lose. If I'm winning, you must be losing, and vice versa. Yeah, but that's not the way of the world. The way of the world is, oftentimes, in order for you to get something done, other people have to win too.
Yeah.
That's where I come from, right? So
But, I can absolutely see that the alarm clock is set. I'm just hoping that it goes off this time.
in time.
Or this time. It's been set before, but it just
Okay.
hasn't gone on. And we sleep through it. But I
We
get what you're
hit
saying.
the snooze.
There's
We
a-
hit the snooze.
Yeah.
I love this analogy because you come to the election and you say, this is something so important for us to do. will you come out and participate? People go, yes, climate change, yes, education, and then they.
It's
hit
either
the
it
snooze
doesn't
button.
go off or the snooze button. You know, it's like I just
I can't, yeah, just
I
give me
can't
10 more
drag
minutes,
myself
Maude.
out of
10 more
bed.
minutes,
Yeah,
Maude.
absolutely. You know, there's a poet from the United States, Mark Smith,
Okay.
who started. He actually started the slam movement, which
Oh.
I was a part
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
originally. And he had this great poem, and I think it kind of sums it up, like in terms of building community, in terms of building even government,
Okay.
or proper structure. And his poem was called, or the line from the poem that resonated with me,
Sure.
and has for a long time, is, when you get to the top of the mountain, pull the next one up, then there'll be two of you. And it keeps going, where it's like, you know, you keep pulling the other people up, so that way there's more of you to work together to create something sustainable. So
See, I love that. I love that because there's
sometimes other poets say it better, you know.
What?
Yeah, it's
Shane,
true.
don't say this, man.
I
Don't say
know.
it. But because it seems to me, as I get engaged in leadership politics, that there's a certain iconic status that you're supposed to try to achieve. And we're doing this to Jack's memory already, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, well, Jack walked on water and he did all these things. And I knew him as a man and a
Yeah.
friend, right? And I said, well, no, Jack's, the first thing he would insist upon when he would get up is to talk about the praise of others, right?
Yeah.
And he'd say, well, I've gotten to this point in my life and we've achieved this success. Now let me tell you about so-and-so who started this recycling program and this women's shelter and somebody who did this. And if you talk about pulling somebody up, it's so different to talk about leadership in servant leadership terms, right? How do you serve people while you say, follow me,
Mhm.
right? And that's traditional leadership, more the military style. You look at Harper, right? He says, I know best. Follow
Yeah.
me. I'm on top of the mountain. You're not. And you're not coming up here.
Yeah.
by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
And he
You're
doesn't
not
do it.
invited.
You're not. It's
Yeah.
never going to happen.
Yeah.
I will, my cold dead hands kind of thing,
Absolutely.
leave this place. So how do you talk about leadership in such a way that says, through my success, your success is born? Through this success of this conversation that says we can change politics. I was just on with a reporter and he said, what are your goals? And I said, to change politics fundamentally in Canada.
Yeah.
He goes, that's it? I said, yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so everything we put out, whether it's a policy on this, that, or the other, the way we engage with people, we're having a big arts community meeting this afternoon in Vancouver to talk about different things. It's something about changing the very system. Because our voting, you talked about our voting system.
Yeah.
Of course it's broken.
Yeah.
When people go in and vote, the odds that the parliament will actually look like what they want it to look like are
Yeah.
almost zero.
No, and I'm not saying there's a perfect system, but
No, no,
there's
no,
definitely
no.
a better one.
Well, ours sucks.
Yeah.
Ours completely
It's true.
sucks. This is cool.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thanks, man. And for everything.
Oh, no worries.
Mark Smith.